Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. So glad to have you here. If you like what we're doing, please hit like and subscribe. It is a passive gesture that goes a very long way in promoting the channel. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, or one of our very valued patrons, oh yeah, so glad to have you back. No champagne room tonight, but we will be having another movie night this week. It is Ninja Appreciation Month. It's coming to an end. I'm sad that it's coming to an end. What is next month going to be? I don't know. I made up this one. I'll figure out something else to make up and make it an excuse for us to watch ridiculous films. But there's a few more ninja flicks we have to get in to do the month justice. So this Friday, we'll be watching American Ninja. The movie that takes the genre into an entirely different direction. The white guy has no mustache. That's right. A mustacheless white man ninja. Who would have thought it even possible? But we'll be doing that this Friday. If you want to join us for these fun watch parties or check out the replays, join us for our champagne rooms. There's only one way. Become a patron for as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year. You can join us for these movie night watch parties, join our champagne rooms, and more. Wherever you are watching or listening to this show later, there is definitely a link in the description. Now, let's talk about why you guys are all here. Because it's Tuesday. And because it's Tuesday. I hope that's why you're here. But seriously, let me start with a question for the audience. Are words violence? When does online banter cross the line into hate speech? Is it still just words when it includes threats? And who receives the brunt of that ire? And how should we as a society respond to the people who traffic in that kind of hate? There is nothing more insidious than the cloak of anonymity that online trolls wear when committing acts of verbal cowardice. There's no courage or utility in the kind of anonymous abuse that floods the inboxes and comment sections of women who dare express views outside of consensus. These messages are not just offensive, they're threatening, invasive, and in many cases, designed to psychologically wound. What should we consider a serious threat to ourselves or to our loved ones? The common advice is just log off. It's not really that serious. But that dismisses the reality of doxing, revenge porn, and AI deepfakes, all of which have real, lasting consequences in people's lives. So, how do we begin to hold trolls accountable in a digital world with few consequences? Our guest today, journalist and author, ALIA Dastagir, explores these questions in her powerful new book, To Those Who Have Confused You to Be a Person, Words as Violence and Stories of Women's Resistance Online. As she writes, when women are attacked online, the goal, conscious or not, is often to depress our participation on the internet and more broadly in public and civic life. Not everyone targeting us is doing it for laughs. Some have political motivations, others have moral concerns, many have economic incentives, unquote. Please welcome, coming all the way live somewhere in a bunker in the East Coast, our guest, ALIA Dastagir. Hey-o.
Hey. You said it right. You did it.
There's a lot of stress. There was a lot of stress on my end.
Yeah, but you did. I could tell at the end, like, of the Dastagir, but you did it. Also, fun fact, I mean, I want to talk about the book, but I'm a ninja. I'm a black belt.
Are you really?
Yes.
Are you effing with me?
No, I'm not effing with you. I mean, it's kind of a fucked up thing to say as like a grown woman, because I like got my black belt when I was like much younger.
11. Yeah.
12. Don't be a dick about it. But I studied for 6 years. No, but once you become a black belt, it was in Shorin or karate. There's still like degrees. Like you have to go up degrees. So I didn't move really past that. But I am a ninja. So
you're
so the timing is apropos.
So what you're saying is you want to join us for movie night.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Do you want me to? I'll give you. Look, I'll be more than happy to give you an invite.
Give me the link. Give me the link. But no, thank you. Seriously, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to be here.
Do you ever want to use your karate skills on people that send you dirty messages?
Oh God, man. I mean, I have practiced. No, I kind of yes, but also like sometimes I get really mad about it, but most
Mm.
of the time, I mean, I feel subconscious kind of saying it, but most of the time, I just like want to hide. I mean, I just like
Really?
want to. Well, I mean, when I think about the worst experiences that I've had, they've
Mhm.
been like pretty paralyzing, and so I feel like I can sort of see in my head like the places that like I remembered I just want to be in my room and I want to like close all the blinds, like shut
Mhm.
the door and like lock the door.
Mhm.
And, you know, like your introduction obviously talks about it was such a good intro and it talks about it, you know, the words as violence, but you know, the body doesn't always know, right? Like that the what that it's words, right? You only have so many ways of kind of responding to these things, even physiologically. So I
Mhm.
think for me, a lot of the times I just want to go like I do freeze and I kind of want to hide and I want to just like be as still as possible until
Th-
it goes away. Um,
There are moments in reading your book where I feel like my manness shows
mm,
and I have probably an ability to say stupid stuff. Like,
okay,
"Well, just do this thing," and it goes away.
sure.
Um, and a big reason why I wanted to do this is because, a pretty good friend of mine who's also in media,
Hmm.
um, caught the ire it actually still does, caught the ire of people, and it got so bad that people started hurling threats,
Hmm.
and there's a reality that you don't know what's real and what's fake, and you don't know who's saying what, right? We're not,
Sure.
like, live in a studio audience where someone stands up and says, "F you, black dude," you know?
Hmm.
And I see that guy, and I know him if he comes at me again. We don't know who's saying "F you, black dude" online.
Sure.
So there is that extra added thing of fear, but then there is also this kind of reality that most people don't say these things to anyone in real life. Like they're frightened to have that boldness. What is it about the internet that gives
Mm.
people this cloak of invisibility and courage, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that you know it's you're not the first person to ask it. Everybody has asked me this as I've been like talking about this book, and the funny thing is that I really didn't spend that much time sort of psychologically analyzing the antagonist. Like so
Mhm,
much of my work with this project was around sort of trying to almost kind of like add testimony to the record, um, to create you know some documentation, right? To add to the archive, right, of what
mhm,
the experience is of a woman or a marginalized person.
mhm,
Women, obviously, you know, I mean, this it doesn't just affect women, right? This is linked to structures of misogyny and homophobia and transphobia and all of that.
mhm,
But to really document deeply and kind of intimately what is the experience, right? For and not just like you know, because I think sometimes we throw out words like, well, I was afraid and it made me anxious, or I was
mhm.
depressed, or even suicidal. But what does it really do to a life? Like what how does it sort of contribute to this kind of slow annihilation of the self? So I will say that most of my reporting was on the like what happens when you experience the harm. But I do think it's, you know, it's a totally fair question and it's worth sort of saying that um yeah, I'm sure like anonymity of course plays a role.
Mhm.
But we also know that a lot of the people harassing us happily sort of attach their or not even happily, but like attach their names to things, right? Like I've
Mhm.
had people send me harassing messages from like a .gov,
Like
you
a
know,
work
email
email?
address. Pardon me?
Wow. Yeah, a work email? Yeah,
Yeah, totally, right?
yeah.
So, and I'm just like, dude, do you even want to try to not be like so? You know, there's just
Mhm,
not even so. Yes, I think the anonymity definitely plays a role. We know this leads to, you know, people feeling like less inhibited, right?
mhm,
Like in terms of saying these things. And of course, like there's no real consequences for even people who do attach their names and identities to this harassment and abuse, right? Um, but I think it's a real sort of kind of unbelievable to me sometimes when I sort of look at the whole kind of landscape and think, you sort of think like, wow, like the threat to become the sort of barrier to becoming a threat to somebody has been lowered so much.
I agree.
This example of like, well, if you're in, or you said like, right, like you, it's hard to know what's real and what's not. Well, there's also the argument that even if you don't know if it's a bot or who the person is who's sending this harassing and abusive message, is it any less real, right, to you as like a person, right, whose body is built to respond to threat, to fear, to malice, to rejection, to exclusion, whatever the form is, right? So it's like there are some really interesting questions around like what is even reality in these spaces. But yeah, I mean, I think now we are sort of obviously seeing that this is a problem that, my book is about women because I think the
Yeah.
experiences of women deserve sort of particular attention. And I think, the consequences, the costs for women and sort of other marginalized people is really different. But we see that this is a problem that sort of spans the ideological spectrum, right?
Mhm.
And there are so many reasons for this, and it can be you said mentioned some of this too, right? Sort of politics, outrage, a desire for influence, money, just the norms of behavior online. So I think it's just such a confluence of things that it's so hard to kind of isolate, because even when we talk about online abuse or online harm, we're talking about so many different things, right? That's a
Mhm.
big kind of umbrella of kind of behaviors and what's kind of motivating it. But I think I just it is really, as a person who did not grow up with this
Yeah.
technology, I kind like I have moments where I just kind of can't believe how much access we have to one another to harm.
Mhm.
That just feels incredible to me still.
Do you feel sometimes like an old person yelling at trains?
Yes.
Being that we
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
talked earlier about our
yeah.
ages. Um, I will say I am older, so, um, but,
Yeah,
we didn't grow up in this age
no,
of online anonymity. The
no.
the worst thing that we probably had as young people was the crank call with friends
Totally, like that, yes, and, like,
before
I mean,
caller ID.
AOL chat, like, there was AOL chat, so people would come, people you could create a screen,
Mm,
a screen name, like, that was, so you had some anonymity, but you kinda, like, could figure out who it was, and it was probably from somebody from school, I don't know,
mhm.
it was a totally different environment. I do feel old, and sometimes, Jason, I feel like I have to check myself because I am, I would even this whole book, this whole project, like I had moments where I'm like, am I the dumbest person to write this book? Because I'm not a person who naturally gravitates towards towards social media. I don't enjoy it particularly. I feel I'm not well suited to it in terms of my personality. It was something that I felt compelled to use in my role as a journalist. And I have a lot of suspicion around it. And it's not something that has necessarily brought a lot of good to my own life. Like it's something that I'm just like, I could do that. Oh well, I would say that the creating content, like content creation,
Mhm.
it's never something that seemed to like enhance my life.
Yeah,
Consumption for sure. Like I think about the things that I've been exposed to
yeah.
through these platforms, the way that it has opened up my sort of capacity for understanding, empathy, even sort of almost kind of an invisible connection. I feel connected to people that I'm not sort of even in conversation with, right? Just by the nature of their kind of disclosure. So, but I do have to check myself, and I try to check myself by listening to people who are very online people
Mhm.
who and people who you know um, get talking about free speech. I mean, you have people who for so long didn't have a place to be able to talk about who they are,
Yeah.
right, to be able to tell the truth about their lives and who they are and what matters to them and what they think and what they feel. And so these platforms and these technologies have been enormously important to groups to which I don't necessarily belong to, right? And I have to sort of acknowledge that, but also just listening to people who are very online, who've been very online for most of their lives. You sort of get reminded that yes, there's a lot of harm online. There's a lot of harm. And there's a lot of negligence, and there's a lot of malice, and there's a lot of platforms not doing anything, and not no legal recourse and all that. But also the internet is this enormous place, right? Like it's so big. Where sometimes we talk about like these 3 or 4 sort of platforms that so many of us congregate on or like to sort of bitch about, but like it's huge, and there's so connection and joy and self-definition and creativity that's like happening in those places. That's a long answer, but yeah, I do sometimes feel old, and I have to check myself because my experiences online, it's been very negative. Like I've had bad experiences. I have many days where I'm like, I could do without it. I don't need this in my life. This sucks.
Do you have social media on your phone? I have to ask.
I do. I have some. I mean, I deleted Facebook for a while because it's just trash. I mean, this is the other thing that is so hard about all of this. I just said that like I felt compelled to use it as in my role as a journalist, which raises really important questions about the responsibilities that institutions have and employers sort of have, right, to kind of help people through sort of mitigate or through these kinds of with this kind of abuse and sort of harassment. But I feel I'm promoting a book, and I'm literally like, what the fuck do I do? Like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to. And it's so transparent, like why I'm here, like doing the things that I'm doing, like on Instagram or whatever, and I feel so disingenuous. But you feel trapped. And I think it raises sort of really important, your introduction to, you talk about this notion of just like, okay, well, just log off. Okay, and then do what? Like when you have something to say, like what do you do when you have something to say that you
I was going to ask
important?
that. I was going to ask that question because this is something that I had struggled with for some time myself, because doing what I do, sometimes people have their opinions, right? And it's hard for me to, like, as much as I do this show, I do forget that there are people that listen quite a bit, and I probably say and do things that tick them off. And sometimes I'll respond real snotty back in the comments because that's who I am in real life. Like you meet me in real life, you're like, oh, he's kind of a doucher in real life as well. And I said something. It was a woman. Some woman posted this thing like they do, and it wasn't true. She posted it was not a fake news story. This woman, for some reason, got interviewed, but I don't know if you remember this. This Black woman said that she had wrote Terminator and the Matrix stories. She never did.
No, but wait, hold on. But Sarah Connor is behind me right here. This is Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Go on.
Yeah. This is all coincidental that I'm bringing
Okay.
Yeah. This is all coincidental. So and yeah, James Cameron and his wife at the time, I believe, wrote Terminator. And then the 2 brothers wrote The Matrix, Wachowski brothers, sisters now.
Right, yeah.
But this woman says she wrote it, and then she lied and sent out a press release that was fake that says she got $1 billion settlement from Fox. All fake. Never happened.
Okay, yeah.
And people, for some reason, believe this is true. So I said, no, this never happened. And I responded publicly, no, this never happened.
Yeah.
Now, I could have just kept my mouth shut and been like, this never happened, and kept scrolling. But I felt the need to interject my maleness. I'm going to mansplain the truth every day for over a month.
Yeah.
People sent angry comments.
Yeah.
And some of it would piss me off, but most of it, after a while, I was just like, oh, they're angry at not me. And it was a reminder that I don't want to be reminded. I don't want to turn notifications off. I'm just going to get rid of the app on my phone because I don't need it.
Yeah.
There's nothing I'm going to get from this other than frustrated.
Sure.
And again, this is coming from a person that I'm like you. Recently I published some articles and I was like, oh, I should promote these, and I'll download Instagram on my phone again.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew it, an hour of my day was effed off by scrolling. So for me, it's more of a time thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see a bunch of people telling me to fuck off. Like I can chill on that. But it does. In reading the book, there was a few things that I read. I was like, well, why didn't that lady just block the guy? The comedian, especially in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Who, and maybe I was reading this wrong. Was she getting multiple dick pics?
This was, like, I think that, yes. So this is a person who at that point, and maybe that's my own fault for it not being sort of clear, but, some of these responses, I'm I'm cherry picking, right? Like sort of a handful of examples of things that have happened to these women. And, sort of just, sharing, right? Like how they responded, how they felt about it. But you're talking about, we've had long lives like on these platforms. And so, this is a feminist comedian who pretty much cannot post anything publicly without somebody like sending her a dick pic, telling her she's not fucking funny, like making a comment about her face. And those are the things that she sees, these are public, right? These are like just like in her mentions or whatever. And then in her, DMs, right? She's getting a whole slew of things. And the difficulty with her was just, it's a whole, like, it's labor in and of itself, right? To do this kind of vetting, this kind of like, you think about like, oh, well, you just block this person, it would go on, but when you're talking about platforms that you use for your career, right? Like she's using, whether she's posting content there or sort of making connections, producers will sort of email, DM her on Instagram, all that stuff. It's not quite so easy to streamline a process where you're like, like, okay, well, this guy goes over here and this guy goes over. It's just like a whole thing. Like you're trying to be a creative person in the world. You're trying to make art. You're trying to do all this stuff. And here's this like whole other job that you now have, which is like, figuring out who to block and who to mute. And if you block them, do they know? Do they see it? Now on X, they're like, if you block somebody on X now, like they can still see your content. Like, I don't even, it's just like, there's just like weird, like it's like a whole thing. But I think with her, the issue was that she got really pissed, right? And I think I write about this in chapter 3 because there's a philosopher who writes about this, Sarah Ahmed, who writes about the feminist snap, right? Where you snap, and that moment of snapping is so often deemed as like the problem, like the site of violence is like the snapping, but it's like, what about all the stuff that came before that led to you? So for her, like this was like, I didn't talk numbers with her, but like, no, this wasn't like the first dick pic. She was so fed up, like sick and tired and afraid. And she snapped and she posted this stuff. And she was also thinking genuinely, like, maybe if people see this guy's username, maybe if they see who this person is, like maybe either that will dissuade him from, because you don't always know. Like, is this person just going to send me dick pics, or are they going to like come to my apartment? Like, you just don't know. And so I think there was part of that confrontation and that exposure that was meant to be self-protective, that was like, okay, if I expose this guy, maybe it deters him, or then people will know if something happened to me. And so I guess what I would say, to kind of, because I think out loud, like, so I'm thinking like what I would say to your response is a little bit like, well, there is sort of a challenge with like judging the response. Like we sort of tend to focus on the responses, like sometimes, which makes sense because you're just like, well, you have to cope with this. It's in the world. So how do you respond in a way that's most effective or safe or whatever it is? So I understand why attention is on that. But in many ways, it really detracts from the problem being that this person is sending her dick pics, like, and telling her she's not fucking funny, and that she hears that every single day, and that impacts her ability.
Because I mean, look, it is very things are different for me. I'm not going to sit here and say that we are the same, right? I have not gotten a dick pic, but someone did send me a video of two dudes 69ing before,
Cute.
which wasn't looking for it.
Hmm.
All the things that I wasn't looking for that day, that was
Hmm.
8 of them. That was 8
Hmm.
things that I wasn't looking for.
Hmm.
Um, and it was an immediate block. I don't know if it was a bot or a troll or whatever it was. It was just, or someone thought that'd be funny. Like, I just didn't want to see it. When I read that part, I kept kind of thinking about a couple things because number one, I think like hip hop is similar to comedy in that people are really bad in quote unquote giving constructive criticism. They're just mean. It's mean spirited
Hmm.
across the
Hmm.
board,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And there's something about comedy that people feel they need to be mean spirited if they don't like something. And I think on top of that, if you're a woman, you're probably just going to have it tougher in general.
Yeah.
In general, for some reason, that's the first thing people want to yell at. And it feels like there's, we call it a hate boner.
Hmm.
People like AOC get it.
Yeah.
Um, where this hate almost feels like there's an attraction there.
Hmm.
Did the comedian feel somewhat the same way, or did it just feel like, no, this guy just has
She
a
was very like she said to me, she was like, I didn't really feel like there was anything sexual about it. Like I feel
mm,
like she when she was sort of grouping all of it, she was analyzing it with me in the context of all the other things that she has been sent. And she didn't view it as sexual. She did view it as power, like that they wanted power over her. A lot of the time they wanted to shut her down. Like she did not think that this guy was sending her dick pics because he thought he had a shot and he was going to shoot a shot. Like I think he was, she felt like he was like, I want to humiliate you. Like
mhm,
I want to make you feel so bad and
mhm,
small and nothing. And I think about, I'm actually glad that you brought her up because I feel like that I think about her. I thought about her a lot, like
mhm,
in the last several months, because she has this quote where she is analyzing like
mhm,
she is kind of reflecting on like why are people doing this, and she says something like they want us to disappear, they want to like they want us to take it upon ourselves to disappear or like make us disappear, and just like that notion of disappearing
mhm.
feels so potent and true of the moment, right? Like you have actual people that are disappearing because of the things that they are saying, the things that they are writing. um you write an op-ed and you get deported.
Right.
I think that I don't think that she ever felt like it was sexual, like nobody was hitting on her.
It's
Like,
a weird
yeah,
it's a weird
yeah.
flirtation though, because it feels like my female friend that's in journalism as well. She's an attractive young lady, and some of the hate is so sexualized.
Oh, for sure.
And even like we've talked about this on the show before, like even when Kamala Harris was running for office,
Yeah, yeah.
very sexual, like, even
They
quote
called her a
unquote positively,
prostitute. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very sexualized. So
Hmm.
automatic, like off bat, no matter how you're dressed on, you can have a burlap sack on stage,
For sure.
right? Um, it doesn't matter. You're going to get sexualized in the
Hmm.
comments.
Yes.
Um, and that's kind of where we get the hate because there's something about that burlap sack that this guy's like, yeah. But the way she wears that burlap sack, man.
Oh God. I
Oh,
mean, this is the feature, right? Like, this is
mhm,
the thing, like about women's online abuse. This is the texture of it. Like, it is so sexualized. I mean, yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, the most. I think I write about this in the book that the, there was, and there is, and it's okay. so not just sexual, but like also like pretty like disgusting. Like it's not just like, oh, you're so hot, like, or you're hot or you're disgusting or like I'm gonna rape you or whatever. Like it gets to this level that is so, I said the word humiliation before, and I really think that that's true. Like, I really don't. I think that, like, at least, okay, I can only speak about my own experience and the women that I've sort of reported on. But when I think about the most sexualized messages that I get, I do feel like they are meant to make me feel humiliated. Like they are meant to make me feel so like disgusted, and also to make it so it many of us are experiencing this kind of abuse because we are in roles in which we are public facing, right? And so then you then have this like terrible sort of situation where you have to report these things to your institution or your male boss or whatever it is, and like nobody wants to go to their male boss and tell them that somebody said that you needed to guzzle this up and slurp this down, or even in chapter 2, the comedian, when she had what gave her pause before she, decided to share, to share those messages, those unsolicited dick pics, we should say unsolicited, she thought about her parents who follow her like on social media. And I think that that's just like, it's such a part of it. Like that's part of the mechanism. Like there's something going on here. It's like some kind of power thing. It's a silencing thing. It's a humiliation thing. And it's like, we're going to make this message so disgusting that you're not going to want to talk about it, report it, disclose it, whatever it is. And I remember the first really disgusting message I got. And I feel like such a baby now saying, like, I can't believe what it was, like 2017. It feels like a lifetime ago, but I just couldn't believe
Do you remember
it.
the
Like,
article you wrote that someone got mad about?
this wasn't even in response to an article. They
Oh, this was just your Facebook?
It was, he just came to my Facebook. This was around the time when it was during the first Trump administration. I think I had written something about, there were like so many domestic abusers like working in that administration, or accused, whatever. So I had written about that. I think I had written about like the former AG had also been accused. There was like a whole slew of things that were happening. I mean, I was writing second case stories of breaking news. So I was writing multiple things a week. But somebody like, I think I changed my like title or something. Like I said, I was like I don't know, I changed something about my affiliation, my work affiliation, like on my Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And he came on there and he left me like the most disgusting. I still remember it because it was like so long and terrible. Anyway, I'm going on and on about it. But yes, this is but I think a huge part is to humiliate you, to shame you, to disgust you. Like I have never gotten a message like personally like that's harassing that ever feels like anybody is like hot for me. Like it's like you're like that's not the texture of it.
Well, say again, you broke up on me. What was the last thing you said?
I was just saying, like, for me, that it's never been like I've never felt like anybody was hitting on me, like in these in these profane and sort of sexualized messages. It was always like a shut you down kind of thing. We're gonna shut you down.
I think that goes back to that anonymity thing. I think when you have an anonymity, you can start living out a fantasy, and it's a kind of a sick fantasy, a masochistic one that I don't quite understand. Some of the things that people say they want to do, it sounds like the mad rantings of the repressed, like severely repressed, because again, you're never gonna go up to someone in any time in your life and say this to them to their face.
No, but let's talk about that for a second, though. You're not like, I mean, obviously, like, there's no question. I'm not going to claim, we can't claim that, like, most people are not saying these things to people in person. But I will say that when I was still sort of in the phase where I was trying to sell this book and I was like trying to get this book out there, and I was, reporting still and trying to make this like a real sort of project. It was very discouraging because there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of sort of exhaustion around this topic. There's a lot of sense of like, kind of what you were talking about, or what we were talking about earlier with the like, just log off, like whatever, or what's real and what's not. And so I think there's a real sense of inevitability, like it's really bad, it's going to stay bad. And this is kind of the cost of sort of being online. And also just people are tired of even what they've already heard about like online harassment or abuse, like just shut the fuck up and like move on, which I think is absurd, because I think it's fundamentally like we're not built to ignore language. Again, language abuse, threats, malice, violence. A lot of us are experiencing discrimination offline. We go online, it's the same thing. Like you can't just, the body can't ignore that, the brain can't ignore that. I think it's ridiculous. But when I was trying to get this book out there, I was feeling discouraged. I remember that it was like around the time that AOC was called a fucking bitch on the steps of the US Capitol by former Representative Ted Yoho. And she made that like incredible speech afterwards. And it was a whole like sort of news event. And I do remember at that time thinking, it's not just online. Like she's at the Capitol, and another representative is calling her a fucking bitch. So that, and then also even just thinking, and you can call, maybe during the first Trump administration, or after that 2016 election, you might have called in an anomaly, or said there would be a reset. Like I don't know, you could all sorts of things like you could have claimed around that time. But I think that now we see, listening to the campaign, I've been listening to, there was an event, they did an event, like there was a bunch of, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was at MSG, it was at Madison Square Garden. It was like all these conservatives, and I was listening to it on the radio, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the language. And again, maybe I'm just like showing my age, or like, I don't know, I curse, like it was disgusting. It was horrible. I was like, oh my God, if I had this on, it was the news. It was clips of the news. And I was like, if my kids were in the car, there would be it was terrible. They were calling women trash. They called Kamala Harris trash. They implied she was a prostitute. So no, obviously, like there's a real, again, like the bar to becoming the barrier to becoming a threat to somebody has been lowered. Like people say terrible things. But this is not like, it's not like, this comes from a place, which is life. It migrates online. It changes in terms of shape, its ability to be really diffuse. I mean, it's different, but it's still here. And like, again, a big reason why a lot of this stuff is so disturbing is that it's familiar to a lot of us. Like I have been called a slur in a bar. I've been called a slur in an email. Like it's just, it feels familiar. This is not like the only place this is happening. I do think it's just like worth saying that.
Do you think people's courage is starting to filter into the real world then, from stuff that people are comfortable? Like we kids playing video games is probably like the worst thing you're ever going to hear. Some kid playing Call of Duty with his friend. You're going to hear so many N-words and horrible things that someone will do to a mother or a sister. It's quite vile. I don't think they're very serious. I still don't like the language. I don't think they're very serious. Do you think in this current moment it's a dangerous time in general because of the normalcy, the way we've normalized certain behaviors?
I do. I mean, I again, like sometimes I don't, there was a news story today. I wasn't familiar with this influencer, but I saw the headline, like just this headline that this influencer, it seemed like died by suicide. At least in part, the husband claims, because of abuse that she was experiencing online. We know suicide is incredibly complicated, and there's never like a single reason that somebody dies by suicide, but that's incredible. That's enormous. I mean, and you have, the journalist Taylor Lorenz who said, a few years ago that her online abuse made her want to kill herself, and that then, conservatives turned that into a meme. I think that I remain incredulous about like how much harm is possible in these spaces. I don't think this made it into the book, but I do remember talking to a scholar who said just what your sort of question kind of implied, which was or was asking, which was that I think she was at like I don't know if it was like a school board meeting or like just like some kind of community meeting. And she remembers she told me that she was like in that meeting and she was watching where people were speaking to each other and how things were kind of playing out. And she was like, oh my God, like this feels like social media. Like this feels like she was now seeing, so much of her work had studied how sort of the attitudes and the ideologies were migrating online, right? And then taking new and sort of different sort of shape, new iterations of those things in these online spaces. And now she was seeing, the ways these things were now also coming. It wasn't just one direction, right? And she pointed that out. And I think about that too, even sometimes when I watch the news now. God, everything I say makes me feel old. But I can't.
Well,
it's hard to find a space where it feels like
I'm with you. I'm
safe?
with you
I don't
because
know.
look, again, we're about the same age. We're of the same age cohort, and I was watching something about a Trump got asked some questions at the White House as he was getting on a helicopter, and he's pretty retarded. This isn't anything new or groundbreaking.
I don't think we can say that word anymore. But yes.
Oh, word? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know. Well, you know what? If anyone comes at you, just say you tried to warn me, and I kept saying it.
Okay. All right. So Trump, who not that I disagree with the sentiment, but yes. Okay. So Trump was getting on the point.
And he had cursed, and I've in my mind, not on a hot mic,
right?
Is the first time I could think of a president cursing, very unnecessarily.
Yes.
And it feels performative, though. It feels like these are the things that he must do to win back a base that he has ravaged with his own policy, right? Nothing. Eggs are still pricey. He's starting another war, which is extremely unpopular. Rounding up immigrants, didn't make his fans very happy. They're even mad, right? So you have to continue with this kayfabe, if you will, of a tough guy, this cosplaying of a tough guy who, while in office, goes, these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. And it's like, is this what you say to win people?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, I've seen it from both sides. Like, I mean, if you're watching the news now, like, I mean, if you're watching broadcast news, like, I've seen it from both sides. Like, and I, it's hard because, I certainly identify more with some some of the people who are expressing frustration, anger, with his policies, and are then also using sort of very strong language. I sort of identify with that much more. But I guess I do miss knowing, feeling that there were certain spaces that you could kind of count on to not hear certain kind of. Now I feel like we're having a conversation about like profanity. I don't know if that's like so useful. Now I feel like a real.
Well, no, I don't look. I don't look. This is. That's a sound drop I have on my board, so profanity isn't necessarily a problem with me. Right?
Yeah. Same.
The problem is there is this way, like, people get angry, and the first thing is just attack. You said something I don't like. I'm kind of back to the comedian, right?
Yes.
I don't think your joke is funny. I don't think you're funny. So fuck you and your vagina and all the things that work inside of there, right?
And I think that is a really important point. I think that that's a point that you're making about sort of outrage, right? And there's like research on this, and I sort of cited in the book from a researcher named Alice Marwick, and she writes about sort of networked harassment, online harassment, and she found that outrage is it's such a driver, right? And that's why, again, I have to be honest about these things, right? Like my book is about a certain kind of harassment aimed at a certain kind of person that's having a certain kind of effect on society, culture, democracy, sort of our way of life, right? And that is super important. But it is also worth noting, or I think it's important, because we also see intra community harassment, right? Women harassing other women, people of color harassing people, people, trans people harassing trans people, right? So, like, what is that? And at least some of what this, her research showed was that's outrage, right? Like, if you are outraged enough about something, you can justify all kinds of behavior, difficult, bad, one could argue bad behavior, right? Sort of, it is, and so I think that's where you start to see this problem really, where it was it's a strategy that didn't start with us, right? Like, it didn't start with us. Like, it was a strategy that was sort of came about and honed by a certain kind of internet user with certain kinds of ideas, right? About what they wanted the internet to look like and who they wanted to shut down, right? But those tactics are so effective at shutting people down that they, I think, have been adopted, I think sometimes thoughtfully, by certain groups. There's a really interesting case to be made, again, I guess, around, the sort of utility of feminist trolling, but have been adopted by, I think, some people sort of even maybe unconsciously. And that gets to the norms of behavior, right? Like, outrage can, if you're outraged enough about something, you can really do a lot of harm.
Look, there's a few things in my life I love, right? My kids.
Okay.
Star Wars. Women. In general. That's the reason why I'm single. But, like, all jokes aside, there's a few things I love, and I'm passionate about those things. And I feel like there's these things that people almost make political. Like, you mentioned in the book Gamergate. And I will admit, I didn't follow it when it happened, but when I found out about it, it fascinated me like flat earthers.
Yeah.
Mainly because I kept trying to find out why people were angry.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get it. Like, I like football. I like it a lot. I would say I am a fanatic for football. There are people that don't like it. I don't care. They can do 4-hour-long podcasts about why football sucks. I'm not going to watch it. I just don't care. I still like football. So some person saying something about video games from a feminist perspective is like, so why do you care?
Because women don't belong in that space. We shouldn't be there.
Okay, then why would even more of a reason not to care, right? What is it about that made it almost political for these guys to have that level of outrage, where it felt like, no, we have to put an end to this nonsense now? Like,
I mean, again, like, that is, the bulk of the book is about what happens psychologically, physically, and physiologically to the person who has to live that. Because that was, like, I mean, for the women who were sort of at the center of that, like, their lives are never, like, there's no going back, like, to before, that might just be a headline to some people, or sort of a cultural inflection point, like, in thinking about online harassment for some people. But the people who were victims of that, like, are, forever and irreparably, like, harmed, right? Like, their lives will never, and I didn't interview those women, but just, like, I've read Zoe Quinn's book, and have certainly read interviews from other women who were sort of at the center of that. And there's just no going, once you feel that level of unsafe, like that level,
because they were like doxing people,
they were
for real, swatting people. It got real.
It was really, really intense. But I don't know. I mean, like, I think it was that there are people who are very protective. There are men who are very protective. And, if you even think back to the sort of beginning, like, the very beginning of the internet, right? Like, this was a space that it was male dominated, right?
Mhm.
Like, it was a certain kind of user. Women were really pushed out of, for a variety of reasons. You should read the book Broadband if you want to know why. Like, pushed out of roles in which they would have been, sort of more influential, in sort of shaping the internet as it is today. But I do think that there was a real sense that these women and these perspectives were not welcome. And the sort of people that I interviewed who studied that phenomenon said, like, it was really like a testing ground. It was like, okay, like, when we want to shut someone down and
Mhm.
shut something down, can we do it like this?
Mhm.
Can we go on all these little pockets of, can we go on Reddit? Can we go on these boards, this board, do all this stuff? And can we organize in a coordinated way to shut down certain people, certain ideas? And basically they've realized, like, after that, like, yes, you can. That is what you can do. You can be incredibly successful. And so the sort of takeaway for me, from that sort of event is not, necessarily so much like why like, were these men sort of driven to sort of go for it, but was their strategy successful? And what has happened since then? And it's been replicated, right? Like, at
Mhm.
scale. Like, this is what we do now to shut people
It's
down, to
canceling.
shut ideas, yeah,
Yeah,
and to
it's
shut
it's it's
ideas
what we
down.
call cancel culture. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could say it started there. But again, my whole fascination with that is kind of this whole the personal has become so political that
Hmm.
now you are an activist, if you will, and that does, open up the door to like men's rights people and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
definitely think there was an activism
Oh, for sure.
aspect of that for people that were kind of taking advantage of that situation. Um, but and again, you just mentioned it in the book, but that was the first thing that I kind of I thought about, and I went back and read some more articles
No, it's
about
really
that
interesting
moment.
too,
Yeah.
because, sorry to interrupt you, but,
No,
like,
go ahead.
so, because even, when we ask questions about, like, why people were doing something, or who the antagonists were, but I mean, this is a very, like, there were so many people involved in that, right? And they all, there might have been certain sort of ideas kind of uniting that
Mhm,
them in
mhm,
common cause, but you also had lots of people who were involved, involved for different reasons, right? Like, some for clout, some for fun, like, some genuinely, like, wanted to shut these, I don't know, so many things. But there are people who were involved in Gamergate who then went on to be incredibly influential in electing Donald Trump in 2016. So,
mhm,
it is an important, a lot of there's, research that has been done that a lot of the people who were sort of involved in that, ultimately became what we now know as, like, MAGA. Like, this was all right. Like, this was them. And so that sort of became, it's an incredibly important moment, right? Not just in terms of online culture and sort of history, but it showed, what can be done, right? When you organize certain people, in these ways, and we wouldn't have, you could argue, Trump, I mean, without the internet. I feel like
mhm.
we just, like, wouldn't have them. Yeah, so when I think about Gamergate, I think about MAGA, and I think about the 2016 election
You
and the
you think you look at it as
deplorable.
a proto you look at it as a proto MAGA moment.
Yeah, and the deplorable, which was, around the inauguration, the 2017 inauguration. Like,
Mhm.
deplorable was all, it was like all creators and influencers, and some of them, yeah, were,
Yeah.
I can think of at least one of them off the top of my head who was, part of, who was involved in
I mean, it's very
Gamergate.
culty behavior, right?
Hmm.
The greatest thing Hillary Clinton ever gave that guy was the whole basket of deplorables line.
Hmm. Hmm.
And him running with that in a way that like only cult leaders do, maybe, or just shitty rock bands like Insane Clown Posse. Like, everybody hates us.
There's
So
a really good book. Sorry, I reference everything by books, but there's a really good book called Antisocial, which is like it kind of dives in deep to that moment too of like, okay, when that happened, when she said that, like how these people online like were like, okay, yes, like, and also, so not just Trump, but like how all these creators, these influencers, these very online savvy people sort of exploited that to you know to give us what we got
mhm.
ultimately.
In reading the book, I was thinking about how to ask this question without sounding like a douche. So if I sound like a douche, I'm
All right,
apologizing
ready,
beforehand.
let's go.
Um, I try not to be online as much as possible, and that's going to sound like bullshit considering what I do,
Mm-hmm,
but it is true. I don't have
mm-hmm.
social media on my phone. Um, I don't necessarily engage with it unless it's something that I want to engage with, which is generally 80s pop culture and music I dig.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I don't post about politics because I have a whole show to talk about it,
Sure.
and I can write about it. I don't need to, see how many people I can piss off by saying something.
Sure.
Um, is there something to be said for living a life online and the real world? There's a part in your book where you mentioned someone had sent you something and you showed it to your husband,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he laughs because
yeah,
he's and for that moment I'm thinking about, I was like, if you just show that to me, I'd be like, oh, that's real people don't say things like that to other people. That's
yeah.
insane. We'd fuck them up if they said
Mm-hmm,
that to us seriously.
mm-hmm.
And you were kind of pissed off by it. But I live near another person that does this as well. And sometimes if we start talking about, did you see what, Butt Munch 47 said about this thing? And can you believe that Ass Crumb 94 called me a piece of shit? Fuck that motherfucker and his mom. Um, and then if we talk about that to someone that isn't online, we sound like crazy people.
Totally, totally.
Is there something to be said to logging off, or you can't log off anymore? That moment is gone. We're too far deep in the hole.
I mean, I think that there's just a lot of problems with the notion of logging off. Like, I think that for sure, like, just as a human being who wasn't necessarily built, right? Like, technology has evolved so quickly, right? Like, just
Mhm.
like, it's crazy. Now we're in the age of AI. Everything, it's just nuts. Like, when you think about it, how fast technology has evolved, and humans evolve really slowly. Like, we don't do
Yeah.
that. Like, we can't do that. And I think there's like a really good line in the book where somebody says like, um, you know, the human operating system, the human brain, it hasn't adapted to the internet, nor will it ever, because the technology is never going to stop. And we just evolved too slowly. And so, like, the earth will have gone like spinning into the sun by the time, like, our bodies, like the human body, could really, truly, like, meaningfully, like, adapt to, like, what is going on in these spaces. Um, so I think that, like, yes, sometimes logging off it feels so good. It's such a recalibration because there is so much life to be had that is not, you know, there's just so much beauty, there's so much
Mhm.
out there, and
Yeah.
difficulty and cruelty and all this stuff, but it's out there, and like it is sometimes really, it can be so important. So like, for sure, like, if you need to like log off like sometimes, or create boundaries around this stuff, fine, like, great. um but I think that it becomes a real problem in two ways: when people say it in like kind of minimizing fashion,
Mhm.
which is like, "Well, just log off," like, and it just doesn't appreciate both what is actually happening in these spaces and
Mhm.
what you give up when you log off.
Mhm.
If you are a person, and I'm not saying that you're not or I'm not. I mean, we're talking about like the things that are difficult about these spaces. But if you're a person who really wants to, you know, be part of ushering in a different kind of world, one where that is truly more equitable and just and peaceful and egalitarian and all of these things, like, where do you think those fights are happening? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
we might wish that they weren't, like, that we might wish for something, like, some of us might wish that it wasn't happening in these spaces because it can be really hard. But that is where they're happening. So the I think that it's a problem in two ways where, where people say just log off as if you can just log off and all of that just goes away. So first of all, you just logging off doesn't mean any of those attitudes that are circulating online, which are also circulating in the culture, go away. Attitudes that obviously have real world effects on our dignity, our autonomy, our human rights, right? Like just because I'm not there and somebody's not like telling me I'm a terrible, like, a disgusting person for, pursuing reproductive health care or whatever it is, that I leave that space and I don't have to hear that, like, doesn't mean that I now have like, that Roe hasn't fallen. Like, I mean, it's just so, and also sometimes, I know when I was being attacked by an online mob and people told me to just log off, there was a real problem for me there because I was like, well, if I'm not logged on, how do I know what the fuck is happening? Like, how do I trust? Like, I don't trust you. Who do I trust? Like, it is such a destabilizing experience. Like, to be, especially like a real serious, like online attack where you have just hundreds, thousands of people who are just coming for you. You lose sense of reality. Like, it is gone, trashed. You don't know what's going on. And so somebody's like, don't worry, I got this. Like, my employer was amazing in that regard. Like, they were like, give me the keys to your account. We will monitor everything. And I was like, it's not that I hadn't, and it's not that I shouldn't have trusted them. It's just that like, I didn't trust anything. I didn't trust what was real. I didn't trust the threats. And I was just like, I have to stay logged on because I have to know what the fuck is going on. And so there's that. Okay, but the bigger issue is, as we were talking about earlier, I think, is that, just even thinking about like the introduction, that beautiful introduction like to your program, right? Like, this is where the revolution is happening. Like, this is, I'm sorry, like, it's just, this is the reason that these tactics, these tactics are circulating, right? That there is so much harm, that there is so much abuse, that there is so much harassment, that there is so much silencing, is because this is important. These spaces are vital. And like, people who don't want to have a more just, world, right? Like, know that, and they want to shut people down, and they want people to leave these spaces, and they want these conversations to stop. I mean, if you think about, Gaza, like, why are we still talking about Gaza? I don't know. It's probably because there's a lot of people online who refuse to let that conversation go. Right?
And it's still a problem, right? Yeah.
And so I think that, just log off says, just leave the place where all the power resides, or so much power resides. Again, we just talked about the internet elected Trump. We got Trump in 2016 because of the internet. So what else could we get? What could we get? What could we make possible? It's just it's exactly what bad actors want. They want us to just log off. And so even if I'm tempted to, even if I want to, even if I take breaks and all these things, and, fine, for my mental health or whatever it is, like, you can't, to leave the conversation entirely, to leave these spaces entirely, it comes with enormous personal costs, political costs, collective costs. And I just think we can't afford to pay it. And so that's why the problem of online abuse and harassment is it needs to be taken so seriously, because it is driving people out of these spaces. It's driving people to suicide. People are leaving. It is not ignorable. You can't ignore it. It does have an impact on your life, your body, yourself, your family. It just does. And it's meant to. That's the whole point. It's meant to be so effective, and it is effective. And it's shutting people down. It's shutting ideas down. It's dangerous. And so, no, I don't think that just log off is an appropriate response.
Okay. Hey, look, I'm asking this. My job is to ask questions.
I'm just like, because I've heard it too. And that's why I think that's where I think it's a problem. It's sometimes well-intentioned and makes a lot of sense, but also it can be, there's a great cost.
Do you ever respond to people that say mean things but you can get these hands, and these hands are equal opportunity, and I have a black belt and 7 trophies
this is where we started.
in my Mima's house that say I can fuck you up?
No, I don't say.
Why don't you respond like that?
I like that script. No, I'm not confrontational online for like a bunch of reasons. But I did write a whole chapter on confrontation because I do think it's so even though it's often not the advice you get, like the advice you get from like digital safety experts is
Yeah.
don't respond, don't antagonize back. Like,
Mhm.
and also because we all have different risk profiles, like, and also because of the anonymity, sometimes you don't know, like, are you talking back to your government, to
Mhm.
organized crime, to an
All of them.
individual?
All of them can get these hands.
All of them can get these hands.
All of
I
them
have
right
not
now can
told,
get these hands. You got to
but
tell
it is,
everybody. Look, I
yeah,
don't look. I'm gonna pick myself the same size as you for a second. You tell everybody.
yeah, okay,
Look, I don't
tell
care
me.
who you are.
Okay, give it to me.
Oh, you dumb broad. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna be
Mhm.
all the dumb broads,
Yeah.
but I'm about to fuck you up. I
Dude,
double dog dare you.
I should
I will
take a
fuck
picture
you
of my
up.
black belt. I have a black belt in
You
my
gotta just
closet. I gotta
have a
get it
picture
out.
of the black belt and be like the be like this equal opportunity.
Uh-huh.
It's for everybody.
All
I
right, I
don't care
like
if
it.
you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I don't care if you got a bad hip. I'm fucking you up. I don't care
Yeah.
how old you are. This is, you know what? These hands give no fucks about
Yeah.
gender,
Yeah.
right? Everybody can get it.
I'll have to,
Everybody
yeah.
can get it.
I'll
That's how you have to
report back.
respond.
I'll let you know. I'll perform an experiment. Yeah, no, I haven't, but you're really inspiring me. So we'll see. It may. It is what it is. We'll see what happens. I'm a ninja. Ninja week.
Well, it's we the whole month we've been watching ninja movies,
Yeah.
and for no good reason. I just, it's ninja. I like ninjas. I'm fucking
Fuck
an
yeah.
8-year-old at heart.
Ninjas are awesome.
Ninjas are fucking awesome. You should tell people like, look, man, I don't know if you know who you're fucking with,
No,
but I
they
have a
don't.
ninja star, and if you've seen the
Yeah.
movies, if it
Whew.
hits you anywhere, you're dead.
Mhm. Mhm.
The
That's
leg,
right.
the foot, the hand, it's a wrap for you. Is that
I
really
had
what you want?
I did bow, nunchuck, and size. Those were my
Tell them, like,
weapons of
look, I
choice.
got a whole ninja arsenal.
Dude.
Ass munch 84. Is this really what you want? Huh? Fem hater 44. Is that
Ooh.
what you want? Huh?
Mm. Mm-mm.
No, it's not what you want. It's not how you want to spend Thanksgiving eating out of a fucking straw.
I like how this got motivational at the end. This is good. You just flipped it around. You're like, let me tell you what
Let
you
me
should
tell you
really
something.
do about online abuse.
You
I
know what?
got this.
Actually, don't do anything I said
No,
because
I'm
it's not the right thing. I said some very vile things. Someone said some mean things to me because I was getting tagged I was doing a live event with my friend that's a journalist, and I was getting tagged in her hate. And I
yeah.
didn't know that. I came home and I don't have social media on my phone, but it's on my iPad that I listen to music on. And it was like ding 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 ding. I was like, oh man, what the fuck did I say that people
Yeah.
care about?
Mhm,
And I got all
mhm, mhm.
excited, and it was like, fuck you, and you ain't, and there was a bunch of you
Yeah.
ain't shits and this month. And I was like, why do I gotta be all the ain't shits? So I'm not knowing that I'm just tagged in her hate.
Yeah, totally,
So
totally.
I'm responding. So they're like, "Oh, well, you want to jump into the fight too?" And I'm like, "The fight? This ain't a real fight because
Mhm,
you
mhm.
would be here, and I'd, have to fight."
Yeah.
And I said some pretty horrible things about that person and their mother.
Oh
To
my! But I've interviewed. There's a woman in the book who same thing, like Mickey Kendall,
yeah,
who says that she's like, I had some examples in there that where I was like, I can't even use these. Like they were rough. She was stood by all of them. She was like, I said some fucked up shit, but yeah, and it can, and honestly, sometimes it can feel good, and also sometimes we want to correct the record. Like even that example you gave earlier,
mm,
correcting the record. It sometimes it matters. Like
yeah.
so, it is the risk that you take.
I was told there is a woman on the show that works on the show, and she told me to never do that again.
Yeah.
She said, "Look, I know you're having fun, and I was. I'm not gonna lie, I was having fun." And she goes, "Don't do that again."
Hmm.
And it took a while, but I haven't done it. She was right. She is the voice. We call her the voice of reason on the show. She was the
Mm-hmm.
voice of reason. She was right. But I was, I am good at saying mean things.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say the worst thing I could imagine.
Sure. Playing the dozens or
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah.
we don't say that because I'm not
Yeah.
from the 70s.
Oh, okay. Listen, I'm just a reporter. I just say what people say to me. Okay.
If anyone said that to you and didn't follow it with jive turkey,
This is I asked for. What are you gonna do?
but yeah, no, just tell people that they can catch these hands. You should say that at least one time, but you don't want these hands.
Okay.
That's not it's not how you want to spend your weekend.
All right, Jason, you're contradicting yourself though, because you're telling me you're like.
I want
me tell you.
I want to
don't
see.
listen
I
to me.
want to see a
What I wanna tell
reply.
you
Just
is
I want you
that-
to send me a reply just one time of you.
Okay, we'll see. TBD.
I want you to just
How that goes.
send me one reply.
I'm gonna send you a picture of my black belt. That's probably the extent.
That
of
and
it.
your ninja weapons.
Well, I don't have my fucking lemons. I'm so pissed. Like, one time my mom was going through the garage and she was like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "No." And now I regret it. Now I'm so pissed because I
If your
would have just kept
mom
them in front of my office. Like, just had them all three like lined up. Be like, "Here's my checks. Here's my bill. Here's my stuff." No, I don't have them anymore. So
If your
wait, don't
mom
tell people
talks
that.
like
No, I
that-
do have them. No, I don't have them.
If your mom talks like that, can you just have her yell at the people?
I know. Yeah. I mean, somebody called her once. She's like, "Who the fuck is this? Who's fucking calling me? Now they're fucking calling me? What I fucking do?" You just gave birth to me.
If that is how I want her to be like, is that what you want? You want my mom to fucking yell?
Yeah, you take at my mom's hands. That's real. That's something.
That's not the yelling you want, man. This is how you want to spend. And it's never gonna stop, sir.
Nope.
So maybe mom's is your secret weapon.
I know. I got a lot of things to experiment with now. Thanks to you. We gotta do some A/B testing. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I hope people don't keep harassing you, but this book probably is going to bring out the harassers.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes. I mean, there's been some things, like people who said some things. And it is so interesting because I had such a long period of time where I wasn't really thinking publicly or writing publicly. And it was funny. Like, I do feel like I did kind of recalibrate because then somebody sent me a message and it was relatively benign.
Mhm.
And I carried it around with me for like days in a way that like, it was like, I would have gotten 10 of those like 2 years ago, just like in my full-time, or 3 years ago in my like full-time job. But I hadn't received anything in a while. I think there is something to logging off for some period of time that because you really do. You do get desensitized. Like that does happen. Or you accommodate to it. You kind of have to if you're going to sort of participate. So yeah, they still bother me, man. They do. I can't say that they don't. They bother me.
I would be sitting here lying to you if I said people don't get to me. There's people that get to me that I get on. We have a group chat for all the guys that work on the show. And do you know what fucking, Marx's Ghost 77 said? He called me a blah, blah, blah. And and it's like, and then I go hang out with my kid who's 6 and he just wants to draw dinosaurs. And that's really all I give a shit about is like,
Totally.
oh, dude, I want to look at you draw dinosaurs because that's way cooler than someone calling me a douchebag.
I have to commend you on your like ability to on the fly come up with these usernames. They are so, or whatever. Is that what you say? They're so fucking funny. But also, the thing on the kids, which is so interesting too, is like, yeah, like me too. Like I love spending time with my kids. I like spending time with my kids. No, I do. I love spending time with my kids. But a lot of time, because your phone is often on your person, right? Like you have, and this is probably your argument for not having social media on your phone. But even I don't even have. It wasn't even social media for me. A lot of times when I was at USA Today and I would get abusive messages, they would just come in through my email. My email's on my phone. It's like you're just, that's the thing that I think a lot of people also sort of maybe miss or misunderstand or fail to fully appreciate, which is that like you're just trying to live. Like maybe you write a story or you say a thing or whatever, and it matters, and people can respond to that or criticize that, or I don't think anybody should be subject to hate abuse, but like, yes, you're putting ideas out in the world, but you also have all this other life, and there is so much dissonance between like being in a space with that's so pure and sort of unadulterated, like with like your child. You know, I would get abusive messages when I was with my baby. I remember like breastfeeding my
You talked
baby.
about that, yeah, in the book.
Yeah, and I would get like, and I would be like, what? Like it's like my brain couldn't even register sometimes that I was like like I was like keeping something alive with my body at the same time that somebody online was telling me that I wasn't even a human being. I mean, like that's where the title of the book comes from.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah, like you know, somebody sent me a message. You said, to those who have confused you to be a person, you're not a person. And I was just like with my baby, who I just like gave birth to and was like feeding her. And I just the dissonance of that, and that was always, I think, like the genesis of the project in a lot of ways, where I was just like, people are saying that I should ignore this, and even not even the sort of political considerations or the speech considerations or any of those things. There's just something that feels so absolutely wrong about constantly being subject to that kind of malice when you are in these other spaces. And that's the thing, they can just reach you no matter where you are, kind of like what you're doing. And it was totally changing the texture of my life. But I think I do have much better ways to cope now. And I'm happy to say, you know, when you talk about the group chat, I mean, like that kind of stuff can really be huge, right? Like with all of this stuff, like it's just being able to have a group chat, like have a person that you can be like, look what fucking, I can't get Ding Dong Liquor 55. I don't know, whatever. So look what Ding Dong Liquor said. And like just having like, even if it's just a few people that you can call, and they're not going to shut you down. They're not going to be like, well, just log off, or what did you say? Like they're going to have that, like they're going to make
we're good. Yeah. And you talk about this with the comedian. We're all going to engage in horrible speech. And it is a safe place, because one of the things that I try to do, and I say try, and I want a lot of heavy lifting on the word try. I try to separate this from me as a dad, you know, and you know, whatever else the fuck I am when I'm not on here, because those people don't sign up for, like my daughter for a little bit of time would help me on the show.
Sure. Yeah.
And no one even said anything negative about her. I just was like, nah, you didn't sign up for this. You were being a decent kid, and I don't want you to, I don't ever want you to have someone say something negative about you because you wanted to help me.
Yes.
So yeah, having that demarcating line between the people in my personal life. Because I mean, like, I do this in my fucking room. It's everywhere. You know, try to invite a woman over your house and you have all this fucking camera equipment and backlights. She's like, what the fuck?
Like, what's your operation?
It's like, no, really, it's a podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they all say. It's always a podcast with you people. But yeah.
No, yeah, I get it.
Now everybody's talking about these names.
Ask from
I'm
gonna be dreaming about Ding Dong. No, but I told, like, yeah, and the kids think, the other thing is like, it's like you're constantly, we were talking about the labor earlier. It's like the labor of having to, there is something sort of unnecessarily unjust about constantly having to, like, maybe it's not unjust, maybe unjust is too strong a word, but it's taxing, it's annoying. It's like, you know, constantly having to like really figure out like my boundaries around privacy. I mean, like data privacy, that's like a huge piece of this too. That I didn't really write about in the book, but it's like, what the hell? Like just the fact that like there's so much information about people, like just the fact, like just the whole surveillance culture, and like how much is like accessible to data brokers, to the government, like that, and they want even more access. Like it's just, and you just, I mean, just how easy it is to find someone's address. Like I just think that that's crazy in this environment. I'm just like, why? Like how? But I wrote about my kids, or my older daughter, like I wrote about her a couple of times, like at USA Today, and like spoke about her, and then afterwards like really wanted to backtrack. I was just like, no, like she cannot, not with the heat that I'm getting, like I can't like do it. So I really identify with that.
Well, wherever you guys are watching or listening to the show later, there is a link in the description. Before I even write the description for the show, there's a link in the description to get ALIA's book.
Get it.
It's got a long title. What's the title?
Go get it. You're like something.
It's got a long. I'm trying to. I can't. My eyes can't make
It's
it
too
out.
much. It's too. Listen, okay. It's really hard to name a book, but to those who have confused you to be a person, words is violence and stories of women's resistance online.
That's a great title. They let you keep your title.
Dude, thanks.
I
I
never
mean,
get to
I
keep
had
my
a bunch of stuff. Like, no, for real, naming a book sucks. Like, first of all, every title's taken. If it's not like, if everything's a Taylor Swift song, like it's just bad. Like you can't name anything. Like everything is bad. But I like this title because honestly, it was in many ways like where the book came from. The beginning of it was like I was breastfeeding my baby. This guy told me I wasn't a person, and I was like, God fucking damn it!
He told you that online, not while you were breastfeeding, though. You were breastfeeding, but the person sent you the message online. You weren't like sitting
yes,
at the bus stop.
I was breastfeeding. He sent me a message on Facebook. I read it while I was feeding my baby.
Yes. Okay. I wanted to make sure that I was reading that correctly and you weren't.
Yes, like, yes. And I was like, and that was the moment where like there was something about that just like clicked for me where I was like, no, like we're gonna do something with this. And also I think what's interesting about the title is just like it's hard to sometimes the missed piece of what is so challenging about harassment and abuse and all these messages is that it's not always clear. Like you are sometimes like it's certainly sometimes if it's a rape threat or a death threat or a very like obvious insult, like you know what somebody's saying to you, you probably know why they're saying it. But a lot of the time these messages take up a lot of space in our brains because you're kind of like, what is this person trying to say? Why are they saying it? What did I do? Like, I don't know. There's just like this whole like part of that, just all of that cognition that I think sometimes kind of gets lost. Like sometimes I'll sit with messages for like 10 or 15 minutes and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, why did I just waste like 50? And it's not even that I wasted. It's just that it demands it demands my attention in that way. So I think with that message too, I spent a lot of time with it because I remember being like, why does he think I'm a person? Like, and why is he saying it in such a way? And so even if people kind of stumble upon it, I just think it's very authentic to the project. So
and what else are you working on? Are you still
oh man, trying to get people to buy the book, bro? Like that's what's buy it.
We better do some ninja shit. You got that's the wrong cover. It should have been you in a gi.
What a dumbass. My author photo. It should have been me in my black belt. It's just
right. Stabbing a keyboard warrior in the neck.
Mm-hmm. Whoa, you went there.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that, and then I need to, I don't know, take a minute. I'm gonna take a minute, but
well, the invite is out to you and the fam if you guys want to join us for the watch party where we're going to be watching American Ninja.
Oh yeah. Wait, can you send? Wait, will you send me the link? Yeah,
I'm not just saying that in the LA way where I say I'm going to send it to you and I don't.
No, I know you'll do it. Yeah, let's do
it. I'll send you the link.
Okay, cool. I'll send you a picture of me in my black belt, like just for you, Jason. It's not for the ninja. It's not for the ninjas. It's just for you.
This is why I'm in this business.
Mm-hmm.
With the perks of the job, ladies and gentlemen.
Access, baby, access.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me. We're gonna go. Hang on, don't hang up just yet. And there's no champagne room tonight, guys. I will be back tomorrow with the Red Zone, Mac and I. And let's go out with cartoons because it's such a great show. Thank you again, ALIA. And again, wherever you guys are watching or listening to the show, link in the description to get the book. We are out.